we've been working on, but Gracie's is at the Hewlett Barn this weekend. And so today we're going to work on a couple of her centerpieces. I'm going to show you her bridesmaids bouquets, and I'm going to show you pew markers. So if you would like to ask questions about how we take orders for weddings or anything about weddings, or if you want to ask anything, you're welcome to. I have Miss Victoria here with me, so she can ask those questions. If you when you come on, we're actually going live on both Facebook and on YouTube. So when you come on, tell us hello. Victoria can read the comments from both. So if you'd like to ask any questions on either YouTube or here on Facebook, you can certainly do that. And tell us hello, tell us how you're doing, and tell us where you're from. We really like to know that. Make sure you can hear me. So on Facebook, if you would give me a heart or a thumbs up, that would be great. You know, with our technology, we struggle when we try to go live on both platforms. And so if you would do me a favor and give us a thumbs up or a heart, just to make sure you can hear us on both platforms. So I'm starting out with a very simple centerpieces. These are what we call bubble bowls, or an ivy bowl. I believe I ordered these vases from a company called Floral. We used to order a whole lot of the Rosy Posy vases, and Rosy Posy vases, I'm having a hard time getting them, and then when I can get them, they're terribly expensive. Bubble bowls or ivy bowls are fairly inexpensive, so I'm able to do a small arrangement. Is everything okay? You need to plug that in?
It's alright. Keep going. It looks and sounds good.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, guys. So you can get these for fairly inexpensive, and so you can do a pretty little centerpiece for fairly inexpensive. So these centerpieces are very, very simple. Gracie loves baby's breath, pretty eucalyptus, and white roses. So everything's going to be all white. I'm starting out, these are called Polar Star roses. So it's just a variety of white roses. They smell pretty. So I'm just going to use 2 in this centerpiece. I'm going to pull some of the foliage off, and I removed any of the petals that didn't look pretty. The one thing about a white rose is it gets bumped or bruised pretty easily in transportation. So sometimes you've got to remove some of those rose petals. So when I tell you this is a very simple bouquet, I mean it. We sell this bouquet for about $25. Now, go ahead.
I'm sorry. You have a lot of hellos.
Hey, guys. Thanks for being here.
Miss Margaret Lynch says, you look awesome, Monty.
Well, thank you, Miss Margaret. You're too sweet to me.
Kevin has a question. He asks, how do you figure how you charge for labor on your designs? Thank you. Love your videos.
So it really depends on how labor intensive the arrangement is. This is very low labor involved. It takes not a whole lot of time. So on most arrangements, and on all of our arrangements that we do on an everyday basis, usually about 20% markup for the labor. And so, yeah, it depends on how labor intensive it is. So if it's like a halo that takes a good long time, there's more markup. Or if it's corsages that takes lots of time, it's more markup. So it really just depends on how labor intensive it is. Your labor can range from 20% up to 45%, depending on how hard it is to do the work. So what I did here is I took just some baby's breath. I just took a bundle of baby's breath just like this, and I cut it into small pieces, and I've just gone all the way around these little roses. And then I'm going to take some of this eucalyptus, and this is just seeded eucalyptus, and I'm just holding all of this in my hand and just going around those little roses.
Julianne Lister says, hi there, Monty and Victoria. I think an all-white arrangement looks very elegant.
I agree. I really think that they are very pretty. I don't think you certainly can't go wrong with all white. It's timeless. Alexa, stop. She's getting carried away in there. Okay, so I have it held in my hand. I'm going to take some waterproof tape or bulldog tape, and I'm going to go all the way around these stems. I'm just holding these stems together. Now, what this is going to do for me is keep these flowers from toppling out of this vase. If I've got them all taped together, it's a larger flower arrangement instead of individual blooms, and so it's not going to fall out of my vase quite so easily. So I'm just taking those. I'm going to take scissors. I would normally take my my cutter and cut these stems, but I'm not near my cutter, so I'm going to take those scissors and just cut them. So there is a simple little bouquet. Now all of these bouquets are these little centerpieces are going in her lanterns. So she has some lanterns that she's going to already have on the tables when we get there. And so we're going to tuck these right into those lanterns. So there'll be pretty little arrangements in the lanterns. So I'm just taking some more of this baby's breath and I'm just cutting it into smaller pieces. So it's very easy to use when I make the next 2 of these centerpieces. She has 10 of these little centerpieces. And so I've already made several and they're in the cooler.
On YouTube, Yanetsi says, hello from New Orleans. I'm so glad I caught you live today.
I'm so glad you're here. Welcome.
And Lorianne also says, hello, catching alive.
Hello, Lorianne. Glad you're here.
Olga has a question regarding refunds for an event. She asks, can you please elaborate on that?
Refunds?
Mm-hmm.
It really depends. So when we have a contract for our weddings, I don't do a whole lot of large events. It really all depends on what's going on, what's the cause for needing to give a refund, all those things. I know the only time we've ever really had to do many refunds or anything like that was through COVID. And I've always said, if you cancel your wedding, we always, like for a wedding, we ask that you put half down, you sign a contract and you pay half of the wedding. And then a month before the wedding, you pay the other half. Now, if your wedding was canceled, and you've paid half of your balance, then you don't get that refund. Now, all of that depends on the situation. I'm just never going to say I'm not going to give a refund because I don't know what the situation is. I always like to know what the situation is before I'm going to deny something. So it really depends. But most often we keep that half down because we've done so much work. And if we've already ordered the flowers, like if it's the week of and we've already ordered all the flowers and we've had to pay for all the flowers, we keep all the money because it's already been paid for. So it really just depends on the situation.
Miss Mary Lou says, hello, Monty and Victoria. I watched you on YouTube making a bridal bouquet. Very pretty.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So that bridal bouquet that we made today was for Taylor. And Taylor is getting married this weekend, but they're getting married out of town. And so all of her florals, most of them were artificial flowers that she brought here to our shop. So I not only make the flowers or provide the flowers, I also have had brides ask me if we could use their flowers and make the arrangements for them, and absolutely we can. And so we charge a fee for putting those together. Now with her flowers, we also added fresh foliage to them. We put some eucalyptus, and then we did her bouquet in fresh blooms, using a few of the artificial blooms so that it would match. But we're happy to work any way we need to. You know, it really depends on the bride, and it depends on things like that, but we do most anything.
Teresa Ann says, hi from New York. If the baby's breath stems don't reach the water, will they dry up?
They will. They sure will. Yes, baby's breath will dry out. Now, all of this is going to reach, it should. I think it's reaching the water. I've left the stems pretty long on the baby's breath. The eucalyptus is the same. It all dries pretty good. Like I made an arrangement the other day for Taylor's wedding, and I put fresh eucalyptus in artificial foam. And what I will do is I have left it. It's over here and it's dried. I'll show you what it looks like. That needs cut a little more. But it dries beautiful. I mean, I don't have a problem with it, how it looks dried. But I want this to look fresh. So that's why I try to make sure that it's all going to have enough water. But it would dry fine.
Mary Lou says, Monty, last week you made a vine cross I loved, and so did my sister. Do you know how much that cross was?
Did you want it with the flowers on it, Miss Mary Lou, or did you want it empty? I mean, just the vine cross itself without the floral arrangement. With the flower arrangement, I think it was 90. Is that right? And then if it's just a blank cross, I think it's 35 or 40. It's somewhere in there. I'll have to look it up. So I'm just holding these 2 stems of roses just in my hand, just like this. And I'm taking my baby's breath, and I am just going all the way around with the baby's breath, and I'm just gathering it just kind of in my hand. So these are very simple arrangements, but really very sweet. I think they make a pretty statement.
Oh, she was wondering without the flowers.
Without the flowers, I believe they're 35 to 40. I'll look and see, and if you would, message me and we'll message you back. I don't know why that won't come to my head. We'll have to look it up.
Janice Sloan says, great to catch you live. It seems most of the time I get you on repeat. Blessings on you and Victoria both. You are both a delight to watch.
Oh, thank you, friend. Thank you so much. We're so glad you're here with us. Okay, so you see how easy that is. It's just in my hand. And I always like to just take this tape and tape it. It just makes it easier. And if the flowers come out, my arrangement's not going to fall apart. So if we're delivering and all the flowers toppled out, it's not going to fall apart.
Miss Mary Lou says, okay, thank you, Monty.
Yes, ma'am.
Jenny asks, if they put those in lanterns, will you get the vases back?
Actually, what I'm doing with this bride is I have talked to her, and I'm actually going to get her lanterns also. So I believe we will get back the flower arrangements unless they decide to. I have charged her for the vase. So if they decide that they're going to leave, so this bride is getting married on Saturday. They are leaving on Monday to head to Maine. So their whole family is loading up and going to Maine. And so they really didn't need all the wedding supplies that they bought. So they have several things that they wanted to, if I was interested, to get rid of. So we actually just kind of traded out in flowers for some of their equipment. So I feel very likely I will get the vases back. If I don't, it's not a big deal. But if they send them as gifts with guests, that's completely okay. But if they don't, I will certainly pick these up. So I will go back to this wedding on Sunday morning early, and I will pick up the containers that I purchased, and then I'm doing some mantle pieces. And so I will pick up all the mantle flowers too. But there we go. Those are our three of the centerpieces that we're going to use. So very simple, but very pretty. Next, we're going to do a bridesmaids bouquet. Now, I believe she has 5 bridesmaids. Taylor had 5, and then I have another little pickup wedding that's baby's breath also, and she has 7. So we have lots of lots of little weddings going on this weekend. So I'm going to take this baby's breath, and I'm just using scissors, and I'm just cutting it into smaller pieces.
Randy's Hearts and Flowers asks if you charge a fee for a wedding consultation.
Randy, I don't normally charge a fee. I don't normally charge a fee, but I will give you an example of when I charge a fee. So I actually spoke with a lady several months ago about her wedding flowers, and we talked about her venue. I mean, we talked for quite a while. She sent me a big form that had all of the ideas that she had in mind for her wedding. It takes me about an hour and a half or so to sit down and do the research on what the cost of flowers is going to be, all the things. It's work. Normally, you get one complimentary consultation. Well, this lady never reached back out to me. It's been about 2 months. Well, she gives me a call, and she says her venue has changed, and so all of her centerpieces have changed, all of her ideas have changed, and she asked if she could come in and sit down with me to talk about those flowers. Well, sure, but there is a $50 consultation fee. And she said, well, you don't have anything saying that. And I said, I completely understand, but what you've got to understand is that I've already spent over an hour on your original consultation. And everything was scratched, which is fine, because I don't, it's not the end of the world that everything was scratched, but that's over an hour worth of my time. I said, now I am happy to sit down with you, but there will be a $50 consultation fee. If you choose to use us as your florist, which we sure hope you do, but if you choose to use us as your florist, that $50 goes back into your wedding. So say they spent, I'm going to say $1,500. Well, $50 of it that you spent on your consultation goes right back into that $1,500. So it would be $1,450 that you owe. But I have had to, I've had to finally decide that that's something that I have to do, because a lot of times brides will waste your time. And what I mean by that is they're checking prices. And so they have no idea what goes into me having to sit down and do a consultation. And so what we found out is that I was not going to be able to work for her because her budget was so much smaller than what her ideas were. And so she decided to check elsewhere, which was completely okay. She decided not to have a second consultation, and she decided to go elsewhere, which was fine. And I told her up front, I said, what this does is it helps you not waste time with someone that's not going to be the right fit. And I certainly want to be everybody's fit, but sometimes you're just not. Sometimes you're just not. And that's okay.
Randy's Hearts and Flowers says, makes perfect sense. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
Kathy says, that's exactly what I do if you need a second quote.
And I've always kind of had a feeling of, I don't want to tell them they're going to owe me money before they even like me. Because sometimes you're not going to jive. Sometimes I'm not the person for you, and sometimes you're not the person for me. And I think that's completely okay. And so you hate to say, well, you've got to pay me $50 and then I'll sit down and talk to you, because I'm not really that way. I mean, but I'm not wasting, this sounds like I'm being ugly, and I don't want to be ugly, but if you put me off for 2 months before you called me back, I feel like I've wasted my time one time with you. I can't do it again. And I don't mean that ugly. Because I don't feel like it's ever a waste of time to teach or ever a waste of time to sit down and talk. But a consultation and and all those flowers was a lot. And then the budget was certainly not anywhere close to what her vision was. So it worked out perfectly that I called and talked to her, because we found out really quickly that we weren't going to be able to be on the same page. So, I mean, it worked out great. So this is a handful of baby's breath. This is what one of my brides, this is all she wants. She doesn't want any greenery. She doesn't want anything. She just wants a simple handheld bouquet of baby's breath. So what we will do with this is we will take the tape and we will tape this, and then I will just wrap it with some ribbon. My second bride, Miss Gracie, wants eucalyptus, so we're going to add eucalyptus to this, and it's just the same as I did over here. I'm just going to take some of this seeded eucalyptus, and I'm going to go all the way around this bouquet with a little bit of seeded eucalyptus.
Jill Hughes asks, how far ahead do you make arrangements for weddings?
The week of. So all of these flowers came in. They came in yesterday. Actually, some of these flowers came in today because I had to get them FedEx to me. So the roses and the eucalyptus came today. The baby's breath came yesterday. So I will start making bouquets that go directly in water. If the bouquet, so like corsages and boutonnieres, I won't make until Friday because they're not in water. And so we will make those. They will be in the cooler. It's just as if you were making them for prom. You'll make them Thursday or Friday and they will be perfectly fine. We will treat them with Crown and Glory, so they will be perfect in the cooler, but I don't like to make those too early. But everything else, if it's going in water, it's going to be made early, just to know I have it done.
Dawn Miller asks if you always go back and pick up your equipment.
Depends, Miss Dawn. If I have rented things to them, absolutely I go back and pick up my equipment. But I like to do it the next day. I'm not one that stays up all night. I go to bed at 10 o'clock, and I know your party's going to last longer than 10 o'clock. I will pick it up first thing in the morning. And so that's exactly what I'm doing with this little wedding, is picking up Sunday morning. Because I'm an early bird, so I can get there at 6 o'clock, and that be no problem. But I can't get there at 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, and then function the next day. So I have always been one that prefers to go first thing in the morning, and most of the time I don't have that problem. Okay, so there is our baby's breath bouquet with a ring of eucalyptus. And so very simple, very pretty.
Carlotta asks, on an average size wedding, how much does someone typically spend on wedding flowers?
Miss Carlotta, it really, really, really depends on what type of flowers they have in mind. We do weddings anywhere from, budget's not ever really been something that I'm not a stickler for, if I'm going to do your wedding, you have to spend $3,000. No, I feel like I want everyone to be able to get flowers for their wedding. And so that's just how I've always been. Now, I'm going to tell you up front, if you want $4,000 worth of flowers and you've given me a budget of $1,200, that this isn't going to work, and so I tell you up front, I usually ask for a budget. Our weddings range anywhere from $1,200 to, I've done weddings as big as $17,000. So it really, really depends. On average, I would say, about $2,000 is what we normally do. But it really all depends on the bride, all depends on the budget. Okay, so here is our handheld bouquet. And when I sit down and do a consultation with a bride, I usually ask them up front, tell me, what is your budget? And then I'm going to look at their pictures and the number of things that they have in mind. So how many bouquets, how many bridesmaids bouquets, how many boutonnieres, how many corsages, all those things. I'm going to ask those details, and then I'm going to tell you up front, honey, your budget's not going to work. I will price this out as the pictures show me. and I will tell you what this wedding would cost. And then if we need to work within a budget, let's adjust our flowers to be quality flowers, but more economical flowers. And so that's how I like to work. I'm just not one that ever, I'm not going to turn you away because you walk in here with $500. We're going to make this work. We're going to figure out exactly what we can do to make this work for you. Okay, so what I did was I cut a small piece of ribbon, and this is a double face satin ribbon. So double face satin, what that means is it's pretty on both sides. So most of the time you've seen me work with floral satin. Floral satin has a pretty side and it has a not pretty side. How do you say that? It's not ugly, but it's just not, it's not the front of the ribbon. Double face satin is pretty on both sides. That's not what you have to use on this. I just happen to have this on the counter, so this is what I'm going to use. What I'm going to do is where I taped that bouquet, I just used bulldog tape or waterproof tape, and I just taped the stems. Now, I have used waterproof tape for years and years and years. At one time, I used to use where a wire that I had covered with like corsage tape so that it wouldn't cut into the stems. But I have found the best thing ever is waterproof tape. It's easy, it sticks, it holds it together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this double face satin ribbon and I'm covering up this tape. I'm just going to lay that ribbon right there on top of that tape and come around this bouquet. You don't need very much. About 6 inches is probably plenty on a little hand tied like this.
Kathy says the dull side.
Yes.
The pretty side and the dull side.
The dull side. That's good. That's good because it's not ugly. It's just not the pretty side, right? So I'm going to take and wrap that stem with that ribbon. And I'm going to pull it as tight as I can, and then I'm going to fold that end over. Now what that's doing is it's giving me a pretty end to that ribbon, a pretty finish. I'm going to take a couple of corsage pins. Now a corsage pin is a pearl-headed pin. You don't have to use corsage pins if you don't want to. They're just pretty and they work. I'm going to take that pin and I am going to press it right in to that ribbon. I'm going to push the pin up. So the point side is going up toward the flowers themselves. And the reason I'm pushing it up towards the flowers is because nobody's holding the flowers like I'm holding them right now. Nobody's got their hands all in the heads of the flowers, right? Their hands are always down here on the stems. So that point's not going to poke anybody. So that's why you want to go up toward the flowers. So what that does is it gives us almost like little pearl buttons that's often on a bridal dress. And it just gives us a pretty finish to that bouquet. Now, they're going to hold that bouquet just like this. They're going to hold it down around their waist. Now, I always try to talk to my bride before I leave. And I try to explain to her, when you hold your bridal bouquet, I don't want you to walk down the aisle with it up here at your face, okay? When we walk down the aisle, I don't know if you even recall this, and it might just be because I notice things. Most of the time, bridesmaids are going to hold their bouquets up this high. And they're going to hold the arm of their groomsman, and they're going to walk down that aisle holding it up as if it's a lollipop. It's very important for your pictures that you hold this down at your waist, okay? So you're going to hold it right here at your belly button. So, are we going dark?
Yeah.
And while you're fixing that, Victoria, I'm going to run and grab a couple more roses so we can do the pew markers. Guys, we're coming right back. We just went dark. This camera does that to us. Give me just a second.
Sorry guys. Also, I tried to turn down the brightness on the camera so to see if you guys can see that.
Are we back?
The white flowers.
Sorry. This silly camera goes dark. I apologize, guys. So it just makes a prettier picture when you hold that bouquet down at your belly button. But people don't think of that. And so, did we go dark again?
No. I just forgot to turn the button. Some of the buttons.
You forgot to turn a button. So anyway, it's just a prettier picture, okay? So, when you're at a wedding, remind people. And I know that sounds silly, but it's important. Okay, I'm going to set this guy. So what we're going to do with all of these bridesmaids bouquets, they're going to just drop down in a vase of water, and we're going to put them in the cooler. And we're not going to have any problems whatsoever with these being fresh for the wedding. So there's that bridesmaids bouquet. And I will make Gracie's bride's bouquet probably Thursday or Friday. But it's a beautiful bouquet. I'm kind of excited about Gracie's. It's different than anything I've ever done, so I'm excited. All right, last but not least, we are going to work on the pew markers. This is a very simple wedding, and our pew markers are very simple and pretty. So we're going to take a single white rose, and I'm having to peel this one way back.
Graham Newell says, good evening from Somerset, UK. Managed to get you live tonight.
So glad you're here, Graham. Thank you so much for being here.
On YouTube, Jenny is watching from Nebraska.
Hello, Jenny. Welcome.
Chris, also on YouTube, says, just got on, love baby's breath.
Oh, yes. Isn't it fun? It's pretty. Now, I don't use baby's breath a lot. I only use it for weddings and this type of thing. I don't use it as a traditional filler flower because it's clumpy and it's hard to work with. But when you're working with baby's breath in this form, I don't mind it at all. All right, we're going to work on a couple of pew markers. So her pew markers were simply white roses, baby's breath, and a little bit of eucalyptus. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my stem, my rose stem, and I'm going to nestle it into this baby's breath.
Allison says, I cringe when I see pictures of ladies holding their bouquets like microphones. Always at your belly button.
Always at your belly button. And I know people think, and I tell you something else that's very, 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 very important as a florist. And I've learned it because it happened to me. So I helped my best friend with her son's wedding this past October. And because I know that the groomsmen don't get bows and the mothers and the corsages have bows, boutonnieres never have bows, okay? But not everybody knows that. So anytime you see a flower to wear and it has a bow, it goes on a lady. Anytime you see a flower without a bow, it goes on a man. And when I got there, I was a few minutes late, and I was a few minutes late I was working at the reception. I came over, they were just taking pictures, and they had already pinned flowers on the groomsmen and on the groom and the father of the groom and the father of the bride. And they all had corsages on. And I felt like I might die. I pulled them off very quickly and I got their boutonnieres on them, but they had already started taking pictures. And so a lot of the pictures had the groom with a corsage on. Now, very likely it's me. It's me that has a problem with that. Nobody else knew that. But if they did know that, that just drives me crazy. So, as a florist, mark all of the boutonnieres as boutonnieres. And I know that sounds like overkill, but you and I know they are boutonnieres. Even if you write it on the outside of the box, that's not enough because they're not reading what's on the outside of the box. Because I always label the boxes boutonnieres for the groomsmen, the fathers, the grandfathers, yada yada. And I mark all of the corsages for XYZ, and you mark all of those. If you don't individually mark them with those tags, they are very likely going to go on the wrong person. So I know that sounds silly. I know that sounds like overkill, but it will happen. So take that little bit of extra time to put that on a corsage or boutonniere, because I'm going to tell you, no telling how many weddings that I have not attended that the men wore all the corsages and the women wore the boutonnieres. So, just there we go.
Let's see.
So all I'm doing is holding this little flower in my hand, and I just added a tiny bit of baby's breath and a little bit of eucalyptus. I'm going to tape it with my handy dandy tape.
Don Miller asks, do you ask for a down payment so if they back out, you are covered?
Dawn, I do. So when they sign a contract with me, I have just a written contract that says I promise to fulfill your wedding as we talked about. And then in my contract it does say flowers are if in case the season I'm unable to get exact flowers, I'm always going to contact the bride. But if in case they give me full rights to order a different type of flower if I have, all the things. You just have to cover yourself. But I ask for 50% down for a down payment. And then they have to pay the full balance the month of the wedding. So if their wedding is at the end of a month before the wedding. So whenever a month is before the wedding, I need the full payment so I can get all the flowers ordered. So here's a very simple pew marker. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to take this little pew marker, drop it down in a bucket of water, and when we get to the wedding itself, we will pull these pew markers out of the water and we'll attach them to the chairs. Now we're going to take this double-faced satin and we are going to tie this little pew marker to the chair, but I'm going to show you how sweet this looks with the little streamers coming down. So I'm just going to take it and tie this double-faced satin right around where I taped it.
Mike Shore says, I always tag them with who they are for. I've had it happen as well. Audrey says, I agree about individual marking. I have had people want bows on the men's flowers. Drives me nuts.
Yeah, I've really not had anybody ask for bows on them. It's just that they just didn't know better. They just don't know. And a lot of times I think I take it for granted that people should know that. And so that's why when I'm teaching you guys and I'm teaching on here, I try to always discuss, this is how you need to do this and this is how you need to do that. Because I think as florists, we take it for granted that they should know that. And they don't. People don't know it. If you've not worked in it and you don't know how flowers should be done, you don't know. So here is our sweet little pew marker. So how simple and easy but pretty and elegant that is to me. Of course you're going to trim up your streamers, but that's so simple. Another thing that I always ask when I am taking orders for a wedding is I always ask, are the men wearing jackets? If the men are not going to wear a jacket, do not sell them a boutonniere. And I don't care. I know that you're going to make money off of boutonnieres, but there is nothing worse than a white shirt with a boutonniere stuck on a white shirt. The problem is that men don't wear foundation under their clothes like women do. We have foundation, we have bras, and we have undergarments that we wear underneath a dress or underneath our clothes. Therefore, a corsage or boutonniere, a corsage is not going to flop like a boutonniere is on a white shirt. A boutonniere was originally made to go on a jacket, so sell it for a jacket. Tell them up front, if I were you, I wouldn't waste my money on a boutonniere if they're not going to wear a jacket. And you know what? The thing is that that's great. They didn't really want to spend that extra money anyway if they're not supposed to do it. Now, if they demand it and they have to have it, I'll sell it to you. But it just looks so much better with a jacket. So I do my best to always try to not sell a boutonniere if they're not going to wear a jacket. Any more questions, Miss Victoria?
Glenn King says, a lot of boutonnieres are pinned on the wrong side. Please tell the proper side to put the boots on. And Deborah also asks if the men are supposed to wear the boutonnieres on the left.
So I think you wear it over your heart. Is that right? I have no idea. I always look at a jacket. Is it on the left?
Well, the heart is kind of...
So I always look at the jacket. There's 9 times out of 10, when you look at a jacket, it is going to have a little buttonhole. And the buttonhole is where the boutonniere should go. I want to say it's on the left-hand side that you wear a boutonniere. But if you look at a jacket and it's a tailored jacket, it is going to have a little buttonhole right there on the lapel, and that's where the boutonniere goes.
Okay, Allison says yes on the left.
Okay, so yeah, it's on the left.
And then, Denise says, hi from Georgia. What are some names of a few of the more economical flowers for a bouquet, and what would be the most expensive flower you've worked with?
So, most expensive flower I've ever worked with, I would say, would be Lily of the Valley. You don't get a whole lot for your money, and you pay a whole lot for it. Lily of the Valley is the very most expensive. I worked with it one time in my whole life. And economical flowers, I know a lot of times people are going to look at a rose and say, that's an expensive flower. Honestly, a rose is very economical. Roses, I work with a whole lot. Lysianthus, I love Scabiosa. I love Ranunculus in wedding work. Hydrangeas a lot in wedding work. There's lots and lots of flowers that are very economical, and quite honestly, more than you would think. The things that are not economical is if they are not in season. The main flower that people want is a peony for a wedding. They are gorgeous. I mean, absolutely beautiful. But their season is short. Their season is in the spring, April, May, and June. Usually we can get peonies for a very reasonable price. But when I tell you reasonable for a peony is $8. And so for me, $8 is a lot of money for a flower. But don't get me wrong, it's amazing. It's an amazing flower. So I'm not saying don't get it if you want it, because it is a beautiful flower, but it's very expensive. I would talk you out of Lily of the Valley every single time. You don't want to pay for Lily of the Valley, but it's amazing. It's a beautiful flower, but it's about the size of the tip of my pinky. But it's a very pretty flower. What else? I've worked with calla lilies. Calla lilies aren't. I mean, it depends on the size of the calla, but it's somewhat of a pricey flower depending on. Say again.
Dahlias.
Dahlias are expensive, and I say dahlias are expensive, but but if you get them in season, they're not terribly expensive. So it always depends on their season. There are some flowers that are very seasonal, and dahlias and peonies are two that are very seasonal. Dahlias, the only problem I have ever had with them, they're gorgeous. They are so beautiful, but they're not long lasting. And so you get them in here and they may last just a few days. And so that hurts my feelings. And then there are flowers that would prefer to be in the wintertime versus in the summertime. And it really depends on your climate. So the longer you have a cold season, the better off, say, tulips are. They're happier in a cold environment. In Mississippi, they're just not happy.
Melanie Gomez on YouTube says, as far as boutonnieres or the guys with no jacket, just shirt and suspenders wanting to pin to the suspenders.
Now, I have seen that, but if you go back to etiquette, it's against etiquette. Now they can do it. I mean, honestly, if you want a boutonniere, I will sell it to you. But if you read etiquette at all, etiquette says it's only made for a jacket.
She also says there are some really nice realistic silk lily of the valley as a substitute.
Yes, and I am not opposed to using faux flowers with fresh flowers. And actually, for this little wedding, we are going to be making, I don't know if you remember back several weeks ago, back in February, we made our mantelpieces in faux flowers, and we added fresh greenery to those. This is in the same location as when I made that mantelpiece. Therefore, we're going to make 2 mantelpieces. It's a double mantle. And so we are going to make 2 mantelpieces using faux flowers as our main flowers, and then we're going to tuck baby's breath and fresh baby's breath and fresh eucalyptus into those bouquets. Therefore, they are not having to pay top dollar for all the fresh flowers that are just going to die. We are going to use some faux flowers and some fresh flowers, and all of those faux flowers will be picked up. We're going to actually rent those faux flowers, and we will go back and pick them up and we'll reuse them again. So I'm not opposed to faux, especially if it's a pretty artificial bloom. I think that's completely okay. Now, that's not everybody's opinion, I'm sure, but for me personally, I think it's completely okay.
Linda Sue asks if you've ever used orange blossoms in bouquets.
I have not. No, ma'am, I have not. I've never even held them in my hands. But they're pretty in the pictures.
Graham Newell asks, do you always do hand-tie bouquets or do you wire/glue bouquets?
I don't do a whole lot of old school traditional wiring and taping of bouquets. I would say 99.9% of all my bouquets have been hand-tied, just like I just did. I came into the, I learned to wire and tape. I learned how to use bouquet holders. Bouquet holders always have given me anxiety because all I can think is those flowers are going to fall out of that little teeny piece of fresh floral foam. And so I've never even sold a bouquet in fresh floral foam because it gives me so much anxiety and I just can't stand it. Wiring and taping, I have not sold very many bouquets that had that cascade that needed to be wired and taped. I absolutely can do it, but I've not had a bride choose a bouquet of that style. And so I wouldn't mind one day doing that, but I don't. I haven't, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. I haven't done a bouquet wired and taped.
Kathy asks, how do you finish the ribbon streamers on the pew bows?
They will be dovetailed. And so what dovetailed means is you just take that ribbon and I fold it in half, and then I'm going to put that little V in that ribbon. So it'll just be a little finished dovetail ribbon. I don't know if you can see that, but just a simple little V in that ribbon. And it's a very simple pew marker. And so how this will work is we will tie, I believe these will be chairs. This is at an old barn, and at the barn they will have white chairs set up. And so these little pew markers will actually be tied onto chairs. And so we will just take our double face satin, tie it onto the chair, put my little arrangement of flowers tucked right there into that ribbon, tie it on very tightly, and then finish it with a little dovetail. So just a sweet little shoestring bow.
Petals and Pickens says, standard size roses seem too big for a boutonniere. I prefer the sprays. Many times I've seen the big roses just hanging on by a thread because they're too heavy. I see that a lot at homecoming and proms. Yes.
Now let me tell you the variety I really love for a boutonniere, because it saves you so much time wiring and taping when it comes to boutonnieres. I love an Eskimo. An Eskimo is a white rose, but it's a tiny rose versus this is a pretty big one. And actually this is a polar star. I have my mouth will not work. I have Eskimo roses back there, and so I'll show you those this week, the difference in these two roses. I'm actually going to use those for my boutonnieres, my flowers to wear, and so I'll show you what that looks like. I really like an Eskimo because it's a petite rose, and it requires one flower versus 2 or 3 for a boutonniere. And so it just saves you time. I'm all about saving time. Goodness gracious, it's a lot of work. Now, Callie really enjoys doing flowers to wear, and so Callie will get in her little nest and she will have all of her stuff laid out, and she will just sit over there quietly and make all the corsages and boutonnieres. they are not my favorite, but they're not quick work. And so like all of this is very quick. I can have this done in no time, where corsages and boutonnieres are just more time consuming. So I don't love that, and Callie enjoys it, so she does most of our corsages and boutonnieres. But when it comes to prom, I really like an Eskimo the best. Now, not all colored roses are going to come in that petite size, but I'll show you the difference between an Eskimo and this Polar Star, and you'll see how sweet and petite they are.
Sweetbriar says she's going to share some pictures with you.
Sounds
that
wonderful.
She did for a photo shoot. And then Bonita asks, do you prefer a particular size rose for bridal bouquets?
I don't. I'm not picky. I'm not picky about rose sizes for bouquets. I'm particular about them for flowers to wear, but not flowers to carry. Flowers to carry, it doesn't even matter what size the flowers are, or the roses are. I don't think that's ever been an issue. It's always been like, I don't know who just said about the standard roses and the boutonnieres. I just despise a standard rose as a boutonniere. But it's just because they're just big and clunky. And that's what I don't love about them. Is that it? All right, guys. Thanks for all the wonderful questions. We have just talked and talked. Thank you so much. Guys, I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. If you have any more questions about how we do things here, or about weddings, or about anything flower shop related, I am so happy to answer them if I can, and if I can't, we'll figure it out for you. If you would do me a great big favor and sprinkle this video over on Facebook, that would be so nice. What that does is it helps others see our videos, and it helps our platform to grow. Guys, thank you, thank you, thank you. We will be back tomorrow. I'm not sure what we're going to do, but we will be back. We will be back. Y'all have a great evening. We'll see you soon.